Why are your AI prompts failing, even when you're asking the right question? Most people use AI like a search box. Type a command, hope for magic, and blame the model when the answer is generic. But what if the real problem isn't the AI? It's how we're communicating with it. In this video, we'll break down why traditional prompting often falls short, how ideas like perspective taking and the CASA paradigm reveal a better way to work with AI, and why treating AI more like an intelligent collaborator can lead to sharper, more useful results. By the end, you'll understand the hidden psychology behind better AI interactions and how to stop getting average answers from powerful tools.
Welcome back to another Explainer. Today we're unpacking this genuinely fascinating psychological insight from Dr. Elizabeth Mateer. Look, if you've ever felt like you're just not getting that high-level utility out of AI that you expect, believe me, you are not alone. We're going to explore exactly why most of us approach AI with the totally wrong cognitive framework and how just a slight psychological shift changes literally everything.
Let's be honest for a second. Have you ever stared at your screen in total frustration just wondering why your AI prompts are completely failing? Like you ask Claude or ChatGPT to draft a strategy document, and what do you actually get back? Usually it's just a generic, bulleted list of buzzwords that isn't even usable. It's incredibly frustrating, right? Especially when you see other people seemingly effortlessly getting output that organizes massive projects or solves complex problems. Now, you might be thinking you're just not technical enough, but as we're about to discover, the real issue here, it has absolutely nothing to do with code.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our cognitive roadmap for today's Explainer. First, we'll look at the AI frustration divide. Second, system perspective taking explained. Third, active thinkers versus consumers. Fourth, the risks of overtrust. And finally, a new cognitive skill.
So, starting off with Section 1, the AI frustration divide.
I want you to take a quick second and just reflect on the last few prompts you fed into an AI system. Were they short, maybe one-off commands? Well, if so, you are hitting the exact wall Dr. Mateer describes. The core issue here isn't a technical issue, it's a thinking issue. The difference between getting total garbage and getting pure gold isn't about being a programmer, it's entirely about how you think about the system you're interacting with. Remember, AI is essentially just a massive probability engine. If you give it zero context to work with, it just gives you the most generic average of the internet. It's simply guessing the most likely next word based on broad data. So without your guidance, it just defaults to boring.
Moving right along to Section 2, System Perspective Taking Explained.
So how exactly do we fix our thinking? Well, the psychological mechanism that separates the real power users from everyone else is something called system perspective taking. Basically, this is an as-if theory of mind, but applied to a machine. Now, we all know AI doesn't have an actual human mind. It doesn't think, it doesn't feel, and it doesn't remember your past conversations unless you specifically tell it to. But the people who get the absolute best results, they interact with it as if it does. They consciously supply the missing real-world grounding before they even type out their question. They're anticipating exactly what context the system needs to genuinely understand the request.
So the crucial point is, because the AI has zero real-world context about your life or your specific problem, you have to consciously build the box you want it to think inside of. That means clearly outlining your relevant context, strictly defining your constraints so it knows what not to do, setting the exact specific goals for the output, and laying out your underlying assumptions. If you just walk up to a probability engine and ask a vague question, it has no choice but to give you a high likelihood, totally generic answer. You absolutely have to carefully construct its reality for that specific task.
This actually ties into a genuinely fascinating psychological concept called the CASA Paradigm. That stands for Computers Are Social Actors. Research actually shows that we human beings have this natural tendency to automatically apply interpersonal social rules to machines that use natural language. We just naturally want to treat them like social partners. And surprisingly, this is a huge advantage. Communication dramatically improves when we anticipate how our digital collaborator is going to interpret our message. You deliberately want to treat the AI like an eager but totally clueless intern that you're briefing for a massive project. Give it the background, give it the guardrails, and then set it to work.
Which brings us to Section 3, active thinkers versus consumers. Let's look at what highly effective use looks like side by side with poor use, and this brilliantly illustrates the difference. On the left, you've got a vague prompt like, "Help me with this project." And that yields just a pile of useless scraps. You can probably already imagine the bland, unactionable checklist the AI is going to spit out for that. But on the right, look at what happens when you apply perspective taking. The user provides the project, the goal, the timeline, the constraints, and the work already done. It is literally night and day, because the user on the right briefed the AI like a real collaborative partner.
giving it the necessary structure to provide something of actual usable value. It really comes down to these two completely distinct mindsets. The passive consumer is basically one and done. They type a question, accept the very first answer the AI gives them, and they move on. They view themselves as simple information gatherers, just hoping a machine does the heavy lifting. The active thinker, on the other hand, is highly iterative. They continually refine the output. They identify as idea generators who bring their own judgment, their own taste, and their own expertise to the table. They don't expect the AI to do the thinking for them. They expect it to bounce ideas around with them.
And this active mindset builds directly into a really robust cognitive workflow. It's kind of like a three-step dance. Step 1, brief the AI collaborator, giving it all that rich context you just talked about. Step 2, don't just accept the output. Actively evaluate it for missing pieces and nuances. Like, what did it get wrong? What tone did it miss? And then, step 3, refine and reframe the prompt. This back-and-forth dialogue process is where the real magic happens. It's like you're shaping clay together through dialogue, molding that raw probability into something uniquely tailored to your exact needs.
All right, moving into section 4, the risks of overtrust.
Now, as with any incredibly powerful tool, there are hidden traps here. We have to be really careful about taking this as-if collaboration too far. Because when AI becomes a substitute for generating ideas, it actively erodes your critical thinking. Psychologists actually call this cognitive offloading. It happens when we start over-anthropomorphizing the system, basically subconsciously believing the AI actually understands us like a real expert would, and consequently, we get mentally lazy. We begin to accept those lackluster first drafts completely uncritically because it feels like the digital expert simply knows best.
And the data backs up this concern in a major way. Just look at the findings from this 2025 mixed methods study by Gerlich. They found a significant negative correlation between frequent AI tool use and critical thinking ability, meaning the more people blindly relied on AI, the worse their critical thinking became. And this was driven directly by that cognitive offloading we just mentioned. But perhaps the most alarming part? Younger users showed the highest dependency and the lowest critical thinking scores. This right here is the real-world impact of using AI passively. If we aren't careful, we literally let the machine stop our own thinking.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, a new cognitive skill.
So, how do we make sure we're actually sharpening our minds in the age of AI rather than dulling them? Well, now, what's really interesting about this slide is this anchor quote from Dr. Mateer herself. The best AI users treat responses as drafts, not final answers. That is such a powerful, absolutely vital mindset shift. AI can amplify your cognition, it can speed up your workflow, and it can definitely help you connect the dots. But it cannot originate thought. You are the originator. The AI is really just producing a rough draft for you to mold, perfect, and inject with your own human judgment.
So here is your ultimate, most empowering takeaway from this explainer. AI shouldn't think for you, you must bring your thinking to it. Using AI effectively in this new era isn't about buying better software or memorizing a bunch of prompt tricks or even learning how to code. It is entirely about being a better, more mentally engaged thinker. It's about maintaining your agency, your curiosity, and your critical eye in every single interaction.
The very next time you open up an AI tool to start a project, I want you to pause and ask yourself, are you letting AI replace your thinking, or are you using it to sharpen your own mind? It definitely requires intention, but the choice is entirely yours. Keep bringing your active, human mind to the table. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really look forward to seeing how you structure your next big AI interaction.